Hello, everyone. Just a moment here. Okay, looks like we are live, everyone. Welcome to Aligned and Elevated Life Masterclass. Get some people in the room here. Okay, let's see. Fix this. All right. Good deal. Welcome, everyone. Happy and excited to have you here. This is going to be an awesome class because we're going to talk about a lot of things that are going to positively impact you and your life. And while this is really geared towards people who are aspiring to grow or elevate their business, what I'm going to share today applies to everyone. It applies to all of you. So what I'm going to do is just give me a moment here. I'm going to drop a link so that you can download a copy of a handout. You can make a copy of this. So if you're live, it's going in the chat. If you're in the group, give me just a second. It's coming. So I want you to have this so you can just look at it. You don't have to print it. You can look at it and you can sketch your notes. People are still coming in. Yay, I'm so excited for everybody who is here today. So I want to really start this out by thinking about what it is that you really want out of life. Now, some people, I've had this happen more than once. I've had people say, you know, Penny, I don't know what I want, right? And that confusion or lack of clarity around what we really want comes from a lot of different places. And as we go through this process today, you can really explore for yourself where that might be coming from. That comment didn't post. Give me just a second. There we go. Aren't I the disorganized one? So yeah, so that lack of clarity can come from a lot of places. And we get to explore and play with these things because when we're growing as a person, or if we're pushing out of our comfort zone, starting a business, growing a business, changing careers, whatever it may be, we can bump up against a lot of things in our life. So I really want to start this off in a really good place. What do you want? What would feel good to you in life? And you know, what does that look like? Maybe it doesn't start with the business. Maybe it doesn't start with the career. Maybe it starts with how you want to feel. You know, do you want to have a life where you can travel? Do you have grandchildren that you want to visit? Are you to the point where you have decided that, you know, maybe you want to take so many months a year off from your business? So I'm just looking at the names of people who've joined here. And I know that some of you are in real estate. Some of you are, you know, you're like me. I hate this word mature, but I think mature adult is kind of what goes with you when you're over the age of 50, right? I do not identify with middle-aged. Okay, just if you want to get on my bad side, just call me middle-aged. But you know, depending on where we are in life, we have different goals. And we've all been indoctrinated, domesticated. Some people will say, you know, we've been molded, we caught our reality from the people around us. There's a lot of different ways to explain it. Whatever word works for you, that's the way I want you to take it. But someone recently said domesticated, and I'm like, I like that a lot better then indoctrinated because I love cats. And when you have a house cat, that house cat's domesticated, but it really wants to be out in the wild. It wants to be, out hunting and sneaking through the grass and those kinds of things. Like, that's its instinct, that's its nature. What is your true instinct and what is your true nature, right? As you've journeyed this path in your life, where have all the previous steps brought you? If you had asked me 20 years ago if I would own my own business, I'd say, what are you, freaking crazy? I wouldn't have ever guessed I would be running a business or be a hypnotist or be connected to the people that I'm connected with now. But when I look back, every step of my journey prepared me for where I am now. And every step of your journey has prepared you for where you are, because we tend to bring something of our experiences forward into what we're doing. Either we become passionate about changing something or taking a lesson that we've learned and we want to share it with the world, or we want to create something to make that life better. And going back to the point of 20 years ago, I would have said I'd never be in business. Are you crazy? That's because there were beliefs, stories, impressions, right? I didn't have any evidence for anyone around me of owning a business. My mother was a hairdresser, but that was a service for pay. It wasn't like she ran a big salon, had people working for her. It was literally service for pay. And where do we pick these things up from? So the first thing I want you to think about, again, what is it that you want? Someone in the group asked a question last week, and I thought I had answered it, and I did not see it until yesterday. They wanted to know about soul's desires versus values. And if we have a little bit of time, I will touch on that as we go through this process. But if you're here and you're in business for yourself, or you're going into business for yourself, how are you feeling right now? How do you feel about that? What are the thoughts and the things that you're thinking about either starting the business or growing and elevating your business to the next stage? Because there are stages in everything. There are stages in our growth as a person. And these are things, as I talk through the masterclass today, to just jot notes down. Write down anything that is coming to you. If you're in the Facebook group, you can drop some questions. I will circle back over there in a moment to take a look at that and those questions. But what I'm going to do right now, I just want to pull this handout up. Now, if you guys could just, let me open the chat back up. If someone could just pop into the chat there, or give me a nod that you can see that on your screen. You guys got that? Okay. All right. So we want to look at our future self, because my goal at the end of this masterclass is that you have a blueprint for what you want to create. Yeah, Nancy, I know you don't identify as retiree. I think you were retired for a little bit and you came right back out. You enjoy doing stuff. Yeah, we like to have purpose in our life, right? And that purpose can look like a lot of different things for different people. But what is the status? What do we desire around our business or our profession? Where would we like to see our relationships be, right? And what do we want those finances to look like? So we get to write these things down and look at them, because one of the most powerful things that we can do is to reverse engineer what we want. Most people operate from, when I get to this point, then I'll do that. And when I get to this next step, then I'll figure out what the next step is. Well, to some degree, if we reverse engineer that, we at least have a direction. We may not know the steps, but we have a direction forward. And when you're looking at that future self, what does your self-esteem look like? Now, when I talk about self-esteem, you know, what are the things you're saying to yourself, right? Are you saying kind, loving things to yourself? Do you get into negative self-talk? Do you doubt yourself, right? Like your future self, what does that self-esteem look like? Is it confident? Is it bold? Is it at peace, right? These are all feelings, right, that are tied to beliefs and stories that we have about ourselves and our situation. Now, as we go through this, this is how we're going to have the blueprint for what we need to do to move forward. Any questions so far? No? Okay. So this is where you get to dream. This is around this self-esteem and your thoughts around this future self. This is the vibration. If you want to talk a little bit about energetics, this is the vibration that you want to be in. This is where you're aspiring to be, right? This is one of the things that is going to keep you moving forward, especially if you're in business. It's one aspect of what will keep you moving forward on the days where you're like, yeah, I'm not sure I want to do this today. Because it's one thing when you work for a boss and you have to go in and you have to punch a clock. And if you decide you're going to call out sick, right? You know, you actually have to call someone. You're actually accountable to that. When you're in business for yourself, you're accountable to yourself. And not everyone, but as a general rule, we tend to allow ourselves to get away with more than we let other people around us get away with. So if this is your future self, where are you now? What is your current state of your business, of your career, of your profession? Where are you? Are you going in circles? Have you not started? Do you feel like you need something outside of you to make that next step happen? Because what can happen, especially when running a business or we get into a transition phase later in life where maybe we're getting ready to wind down and have more freedom in what we're doing and create our business around that, we can get caught up in these stories and we can feel like we're inside of something that is like, how do I get out of this? I've created I've got this business or I have this system and I feel like I can't extract myself from it to do it differently. So for people who are already in business and you're expanding, that can really be a thing. I've worked with people through that because we get so locked in to our way of thinking, we can't see a way out of it. So where are you currently? What are your finances currently? And I'm going to drop a nugget in here for you, whatever your current status is, business, financial, relationships, self-esteem, whatever your current status is, if you want to grow and move forward, gratitude for where you are is going to give you fuel to move forward. Because anything that we resist in life, it is going to persist. So if we're pushing back that we don't like it, it's going to persist. And I have experienced this. I've had clients who have experienced it. And when my business really got traction and started to grow so that I could leave anesthesia was when I finally had gratitude for the things that I could appreciate about having that job in anesthesia. And that was the schedule that allowed me to grow a business and the insurance that it provided. Like I loved caring for patients, but the system no longer aligned with my values. And the more I focused on how much I disliked it, it seemed like this big giant, right? It was like David and Goliath. I just felt like I couldn't get out of it. So where are you there? And have gratitude, because where you are right now has gotten you to the point that you can move forward. Without your life's experiences, you wouldn't be where you are right now, wanting to make this transition, this change, this growth, whatever it is that is open for you. And right now, while my mind's on it, my modem has been wanting to go out. It's already had its episode today and it's been rebooted. But if for any reason my internet goes out, I will join from my phone into Zoom. We just will not any longer be live streamed at that point. So what are the three biggest things you're putting your attention on every day right now? Where are you putting your attention right now every day? Be it actions or choices. What are you placing your importance upon? Now, once you have those things written down, I want you to think about the person who has achieved your future self. What are the three things that they are committing to doing every day? What are the three things that you think? You may not know the answer, right? You might have to guess, but if you're in business, you're going to have to every day in some way, you're going to have to market. Every day in some way, you're going to have to let somebody know how they can buy from you. Because Walmart's open every day. Walmart is open every day. Walmart's selling something every day. I get emails and text messages all the time from my cell phone service provider. I think the iPhone 14 just came out. I've been getting messages for weeks about that iPhone, right? So if you're in business, if you're in real estate, you're prospecting, right? You're going out, you're looking for leads, properties to list, those types of things. So where are you putting that attention to get what you want? And if you're looking to scale down or extricate yourself to some degree, does that mean you're leading a team? If you're growing your business, if you're wanting to hit high multi 6-7 figures, that requires team. You cannot do that by yourself. You can do it with a small team, depending on what you're building, maybe one or two other people. But what are the things that you're doing to make that happen? So think about where you want to go and just guess, play with it. Okay. Now, you guys know the subconscious mind is my jam. Love the subconscious mind, right? And I was watching something yesterday, and it's funny because I recorded a TikTok, and that's when the internet went out, and I actually, the TikTok vanished. I didn't even get it posted. It was very weird. Anyway, something had popped up on my YouTube. I go to other sources, even outside of coaching, to gain insight into how to run business, how to structure, how to have a mindset, so that I'm not in a bubble of opinions. And this is important for you too, to look for, just to see what other people are saying, right? To have an outside perspective. It's how we get out of our box. And a video popped up on YouTube recommended, and it was the second time I had seen this video recommended. And I'm like, you know what, let me just check it out. And I'm watching this person, they're interviewing a couple, and I'm watching the couple, and they seem just very flat to me. Like there wasn't any energy there. There wasn't any passion there. I'm sitting watching, I'm like, this doesn't feel right, because I have followed one of these people on TikTok, because they get nuggets on there that are just like, oh, that's an interesting way to think about that. And like, oh, okay, I like this. And it's just, they're not coaches, but it's interesting business information. And the energy was like totally different. So I watched about 15 minutes of it, because it was really hard to watch, because the enthusiasm wasn't there. The passion wasn't there. And I was used to seeing this person like really being animated about helping other business owners, lifting people up. And then they're asked the question, around how, they're dealing like with the recession, right? Because they do a lot of investment, venture capital investments, that kind of thing. And they said, well, this fear comes up. And when this fear comes up, I just push it away and push it aside. As long as I can take the action without letting the feelings of fear hold me back, I just ignore it. Now, what this person has done is they have achieved the ability to have the discipline to not allow procrastination and all those kinds of things that we can get into to be an autopilot response to fear. But at the same time, they're also not addressing the underlying feeling. And that's when it clicked for me. When I'm watching them there talk on this stage being interviewed, I'm like, that's the problem, right? This ignoring their mental and emotional needs is really dampening their energy. It's dampening their spirit. And when I really looked into their eyes as they're talking, I'm like, this is having a negative impact on their life. So what's happening for you every day right now on autopilot? And are some of these things happening on autopilot? Some of these habits, are they things that you're going to have to let go of to achieve your future self? So for example, if you're constantly chasing the next piece of information in an attempt to bring fast money into your business, if you never set an alarm to get up, which I don't set an alarm to get up, but I wake up naturally at 7 a.m. pretty much every day, is one of the things that happens on autopilot, that you just kind of get to things when you get to things. There's no structure. Those things won't support you if you're growing or expanding a business, right? Are you automatically getting into social media when you start your day, right? So one of the things that I like to do is to get my Facebook algorithm going. When I get up first thing in the morning, after I've made my coffee, I'll sit for a few minutes and I'll comment on a few posts, and then I'll make a post. And I really have to push my phone away so that I don't get sucked into it, because I do my best to not get sucked into the Facebook. But it's easy to get sucked into those things. Facebook, LinkedIn, well, not LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a pretty boring place, but yes, LinkedIn, I know you hear me saying that because I'm live streaming over there, but in terms of the animation and the personality, LinkedIn is more professional corporate outreach type of place. But when it comes to TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, those platforms are actually created to generate a dopamine response, as if you're like on a slot machine, and to literally get you hooked in. It's those fast hits. So what habits have you developed? What's happening on autopilot? Are you diving directly into work and not giving yourself some quiet space in the morning so you can start your day intentional and focused and with just a breath of fresh air? Those things are important as well. Now, not everybody's day is going to look the same. For some people, their most productive hours are 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. So your thing might be to get up and do your creative work, your intentional work first thing in the morning. Then you have your late morning, maybe to exercise, go get a cup of coffee, do those things, right? So is your current self right now, are there things you're doing on autopilot that when you look at your future self, you're thinking, that's probably not going to work? Now, this is one of those things where we begin to get into the things that create the self-talk, the inner chatter, the procrastination, because being in our comfort zone, I'm going to stop sharing for just a moment. Being in our comfort zone is something that our brain wants to do. Our brain wants to be in that comfort zone, because when we're in our comfort zone, we're running the same I hate to use this analogy, we're running the same railroad tracks, we're running the same interstate that we go every day. So that's why the comfort zone is there. I mean, the brain has chosen that neural pathway because it's well oiled, right? The grooves are there. We know we're safe because it's familiar. When we begin to go outside of that comfort zone, we're starting to burn mental energy and mental calories, right? Our brain likes to conserve that energy. So when you're looking at these habits, this is where we can get into that procrastination, this negative self-talk, the perceived fear, right? I want you to consider that when we're going outside of our comfort zone, it's going to fire off the same areas in the brain that fear comes from. And it's simply uncertainty. There's no thoughts about it. There's no story that started it. We just all of a sudden feel like, oh, I don't know. And when you ask yourself, what's causing me to feel this way? And the answer is, I don't know. I have no reason to be afraid. Most likely that's going to be a comfort zone issue. Because if it's a fear-based issue, if there's something underneath the surface, you're going to start to get into your stories. You're going to start to rationalize. You're going to start to try to problem solve. All these things will come up. One of the other things that can be a habit that we don't realize is maybe we're a people pleaser, right? Maybe we are seeking validation from other people. We're always looking for other people to tell us we're on the right track, we're on the right path, right? We're really concerned about what other people think. And all of these things come back to validation. And when we have things in our life, like people pleasing, needing external validation, maybe we even into perfectionism, if you take those traits and you bring those things into business, you're going to end up building a business from that foundation, from that framework. And then you're going to look up one day and it's like, what have I done? What have I done here? Like I got off track because your choices became misaligned. We don't get misaligned. Our choices become misaligned because our feelings, our thoughts, our beliefs, the stories we carry are misaligned. And then we can look around and say, this isn't what I wanted. I don't like this, right? So that's something to consider when you are taking a look at that. So for those of you in the Facebook group, if you have any questions, go ahead and start those in the chat. I'm going to share my screen again for a moment, and I won't be able to see that. Okay, share. Here we go. All right. So what's happening on autopilot in your future self? What do you want to happen on autopilot? What do you want? What do you want to be easy that you don't have to think about for your future self? And those are going to be the habits that you are going to want to create. And some of those may have to do with your actions, right? The 3 things that you do, those things may overlap. Now, I mentioned values a little bit, and I mentioned that someone had asked in the Facebook group around soul's desires and values. And my answer to that person wasn't a clear black and white, because our soul, we're here to do what we're here to do. The desire piece of it is the joy, it's the satisfaction, it's the fulfillment that our humanness experiences when we're acting in alignment with where our soul is on the path at that moment. Our values are based on choice and the soul, the purpose, because when we value joy and satisfaction and happiness, when we value having a purpose, when we're following what our soul is here for us to do, we're going to experience those things. So they're kind of interlaced together in that process. And within those values, we have to look at beliefs, because a lot of our values were given to us. Some of them are our own, some we've acquired over time. And one of the biggest values that I love to share in terms of how a value can be given to us is that, we can be told that, what, in this house, we value family. We value family. We make sure family is taken care of. And for one member of the family, that might look like one thing. And for another member of the family, that might look like something else. And then it can cause friction between family members when one family member is willing to sacrifice their time, their money, their freedom to go all in to take care of someone in the family. And another part of the family is like, no, they need to have some self-responsibility. Like, I'll support if they ask, but I'm not just going to pick up and take care of their life for them. So these are the things, some things that can come up with values and beliefs. Now, your future self, go back to that feeling of having created what it is that you want, be it your business, your relationships, your finances, who you've become as a person. What do you believe about yourself? What do you believe is possible? What do you believe you can create? Write those beliefs down. These beliefs, write them in the present tense. I believe, I am capable of, I am confident that, right? Write those things down and make sure they're positive and present tense. Those things can become affirmations. Affirmations are one way that we can begin to reprogram our mind. But when you look at your current beliefs, when you look at those future beliefs and you hear your mind go, yeah, but, when you hear your mind go, what if? When that response is, well, how do I really know? That is one of those places where there's a disconnect. This is a place where there's going to be work for you to do. The same thing with values. Some of you on this call have followed me for a bit, and I often talk about the value of freedom, because the value of freedom can either motivate you to grow a simple, streamlined business where you've taken back control of your time, or that value of freedom can keep you from ever getting your business off the ground. It depends on the stories and the beliefs that you have around the value of freedom. It is all about how you define freedom. And some of that may come from past stories. Some of that may have to do with your comfort zone. Some of it may simply have to do with habits. Some of it may be that we're attached to the past, right? We're attached to those days when we were in college and yeah, you had class, but you could run around and do whatever. And there were no rules. There was no constriction. And then, you go out into the world and you get a professional job somewhere. And, then you get married and you have kids, and now you have all this going on, and you want that freedom back. But if our stories around freedom, our perception around what that is, ties back to our college days, and that's the way we're wanting to start off our business, then things may not start off so smoothly, right? Awesome. I'm going to pause for a minute and take a drink of water. Does anyone have any questions? Pop it in the chat. Now, how would you describe your identity? Because this is what everything comes back to, is your identity, right? Your identity. So who are you, right? What are your personality traits, your character traits? Because someone's asked me this before. What do you mean by identity? What are your character traits? Where do you live from? Is your identity being a joyful person? and when you choose these words, it's really important to think about how they make you feel. Because when you choose these words, if you choose a word, if you're sitting here thinking, okay, I'm starting a business, this means I have to be responsible. If that word responsibility makes you feel like shit, ditch the word responsibility. I realized that had always been one of my values. And then I came to a point where I realized that word made me feel heavy. It made me feel like I had to carry other people, and I didn't like it. So what I did was I simply changed that word to integrity. It feels better to be in integrity, to keep your word, right? And you want to look at those words and what does it make me feel, right? So consistency, right? If you own a business, if you're growing a business, consistency and discipline, that's something that you need. Which word feels better, right? And if your future self is someone who's joyful, if you're someone who lives in peace, that needs to be your identity, right? Who are you? You want that to be your identity so that you can embrace that. You choose that. We can choose our identity. We can choose our values. We can choose our beliefs. And then what happens is when we step into that, we begin to notice these things come up. We might notice some resistance, right? That resistance can come from a lot of places. Is the business you've created, does it align with your values? Does it not align with your values? Is that resistance because you're carrying a story that someone told you your business had to look a certain way to be successful, and the way you're doing it doesn't look the way that they told you to do it? Have you invested a lot of belief in the way that someone else has told you you had to do it, right? I mean, there are certain foundational principles in business that no matter how you build your business, these things have to be looked at. But the framework and the foundation gives you the flexibility to build something up from that aligns with you. And that's why this work that we're talking about today is so important when you're creating a business, when you're growing something, if you're winding down, if you're in a transitional phase of your career and you want it to look different. Because we can have these stories and not even realize that they're there. We can have picked things up and not know that we picked them up. But unless we're willing to step into a place of awareness and to have some grace with ourselves to allow these things to come up instead of pushing our feelings down, we're not going to know that they're there. In terms of identity, Nancy, for those of you who are on the live stream, someone asked how to apply this to personal relationships. I'm going to, if you could drop a little more detail in the chat, but I'm going to go from where my first intuition comes from seeing that is when two partners have a different idea, maybe for what retirement looks like, when two partners have a different idea for what business should look like. And within that identity, it comes down to, I'm not a relationship counselor or a specialist, but looking at mutual goals, right? And to know what those goals are. So, for example, me going into business, the day that I told my husband, I'm like, here's my notice, I'm quitting at the hospital. And he goes, oh yeah. You said you were going to quit in January. And I'm like, no, I'm giving 2 weeks notice. And this was in September, right? And he was just mentally and emotionally not prepared for that. He knew it was my goal, but he wasn't prepared for that time frame. So I literally had to sit him down and walk him through the finances to show him that that could happen, to show him that it was possible. So I think that, to be in a partnership around what the common goal is of where you want to be, and this could even be relationships with your children, with your grandchildren, right? Where do you want to be in your relationship, and how flexible are each of you willing to be to give each other permission to be who you need to be, so long as you're both moving towards the same goal, right? So I think that's how I would apply it to personal relationships. And I would think that plays a huge role in business partnerships. I have never been in a business partnership, and just based on the things that I have witnessed, the stories that I've heard, I don't have any intention in this moment of going into a business partnership. It doesn't mean that I won't. So you see how I reframed that. But, with business partnerships, there has to be a lot of openness and honesty and communication, and people have to work through their stuff so that you can actually feel comfortable communicating and not feeling like you're going to be shot down or people please, in that you're moving towards that common goal. So relationships are a huge thing. I have a book. It's not going to be here. I think it's going to be at home, but I have a really good book on conflict resolution, on how to communicate. There's a book called Nonviolent Communication. It's more geared towards marriages, but it will give you an idea of how to be able to have these conversations. And I tell you, whatever relationship you're in, if you want those things to go smoothly, do not ever start out your conversation by making someone wrong, because you are going to immediately put them on the defensive, and any further communication is going to be difficult. And this is one of those things you have to learn in business, right? Tech glitches happen, things happen. You're going to do everything you can to get something right, and you may actually make a mistake, right? And you have to, when you get triggered by that, if a client comes back to you and says, oh, you did this, or somebody goes, hey, I got your email and it has this mistake in it, right? When you're new to this, it can be like, oh my God, I screwed up, whatever. And you just have to be able to step back from that. You step back from it and let it simmer a minute and process and meet people where they are. And this is a part of the growth with your identity, with your beliefs, with your values, right? To allow yourself to be in this place where you can respond to whatever is happening in your business, to respond to whatever is happening in your life rather than react. So this is your blueprint. Look at your future self. Look at your current self. See where the differences are, and don't go into a full overhaul mode. Look at it and say, what is the one thing that if I change it right now, if I change my thinking, my belief, my actions around this one thing, which one is going to gain me the most traction moving forward in the right direction? Okay. Now, when we're starting a business, there's a lot of learning that goes on. And the mindset piece is one piece of it. And I actually say that mindset is 100% and foundations are 100%. You have to go, I don't like the term all in, because if you're not all in, then it sounds like maybe you're not committed enough, but you have to be 100% committed on both fronts to create a successful business, to address those mindset pieces, to grow and evolve as those things come up. But you also have to be committed to being able to look at the bigger business strategy. Business has several things that work together so that you can have a sustainable foundation that you can build on and have a streamlined approach. And for those of you who are looking to phase out, there might be something in what I'm about to share with you that will apply. as you're in this transition period. But the first thing is you've got to have something that you're sharing with the world, right? So whether you're transitioning out of something or you're starting something, what are you offering to the world? How do you want to help? How do you want to make a difference? And then how do you communicate that to people? How do you let them know that you are available to do this? It's that marketing piece, marketing, content. And then of course, there's all the little things that come under that. One of the things that really drives me crazy is you'll see things like, oh, let me give you the template to $30,000 in 30 days or something like that. And it will be one single little strategy, which is a small piece of a bigger strategy. So people are getting this one little piece, but they don't already have the framework in place to make this piece successful. And I've been through plans where, the what and the why is taught, but there's not a whole lot of how. And that's frustrating, because when you don't know what you don't know, you can end up kind of spinning your wheels. So it's important to know about sales. It's important to know about marketing. You need to know about how do you know if what you're doing is making a difference? There are ways that you can track data in your business to know if what you're doing is working. And when you track that data and you're like, okay, I was doing this and this seemed to be going really good, and I made this tweak, and then there's nothing happening now. It's like, okay, let's go back to what was working, and then we will navigate from there. You use your data to take the emotion out of what you're doing so that you're not reactive in your business. Because when you're reactive in your business, you're all over the place. And ask me how I know, because I've been there, I've done that, and I'm ready to, somebody can have my t-shirt. I don't need it anymore. And then there's this whole client delivery piece, right? So it's these foundations that allow you to put something in place so that your clients can have an experience, so that whether you're delivering a product or a service, or you're selling somebody their dream home or whatever it is, that they have such an experience with you that they're like, oh my God, you have to call Lise, you have to call Terry. Oh, Helenita is where it's at when you're dealing with this issue over here. And so when you bring these two things together, because as you grow, mindset things are going to come up. As you step out of your comfort zone, mindset things are going to come up. And in the aligned business mentorship, what I've done is, at the request of several people, I really sat down and I got serious. And I'm like, what can I teach? Like, what do I have proof that I've created that I can teach? What do I know that works? And where are the hangups that I see people getting caught up, whether they're at their first $100,000, multi-six, or they're well over 7 figures? What are the common things that come up that are causing people the most angst in their business? And that's what I've pulled together here in the Aligned Business Mentorship. Now, if you're interested in starting a business, or you've started your business and you're kind of like up and down, you're not consistent in your months, maybe you feel like there's something missing and you don't know what, then DM me. Let's have a conversation. Let's see if this is a fit for you. Because right now, what I've done, the people who've already enrolled, they're diving into pre-work. We're starting with the fun stuff before we dive into the kickoff call. And we're going to keep revisiting this fun stuff because it's what keeps our passion and our creativity alive in business. But there are some really cool bonuses. I have a recorded training from Justina Gonzalez on refining your offer as a bonus. I have a recorded training from Patty Dominguez. She is a positioning expert on how to position yourself as the expert when you are new to something. I have given access to some of my best master classes in hypnosis so that people can go ahead and begin to reprogram their mind before we begin. And here's the biggie. Next week, I'm going to be recording a hypnosis audio to help people be comfortable being on camera. Because in 2023, if you are not comfortable being on camera, it's in terms of marketing, it's going to be a huge thing. People are using TikTok and Instagram to search for local businesses. They're using it to search for bigger businesses as well. But even if you run a local business, I mean, there are real estate agents who are killing it over on TikTok and Instagram selling homes because they're shooting video, they're talking about things. So it doesn't matter what you're doing. You want video in your business. Some of the people who see the big trends coming through, they've been talking about it for months, and I'm making that transition. And one of the things I'm going to share with everyone is how to take one piece of content and turn it into a bunch of content so that you don't feel like you're constantly doing this over and over and over, because nobody wants to be on social media all the time. So DM me if you want the details on that training, right? DM me, because we're going to kick off March 8th. It is a 6-month program. Oh, I forgot the other bonus. I just added this the other day out of the blue. You know what? If you pay in full, you get 6 months of private one-on-one Voxer access to me. So we have group community channels, but if you pay in full, you get one-on-one. So anyway, take this blueprint, look at where you are, look at where you're going, see what is coming up for you that doesn't feel light and doesn't feel easy. That is your blueprint. That's where the work needs to focus to move you towards where you want to go. Last call, any questions, anyone else? I am happy for everyone who has made it here today. If you're not listening to the podcast, Design Your Destiny podcast, I love to share nuggets and bombs there. If you're catching this live on YouTube, please go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Penny Chason Official. I love you all. Let's go into the world. Let's share our hearts, our minds, our passion, and make a difference. Bye now.